Welcome to Cheating Story Tales. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive, original cheating wife stories. And now, let's get started with today's story. Time for the out-of-this-world story from our space. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, right? What about when your wife buys a car for her affair partner with your money? Well, you sell her car, freeze the joint account, and remember who the heck you are. Today, on our space, this cheater left a trail of red flags that OP couldn't ignore. Wife cheated and bought a car for her affair partner. I sold her car, froze the joint account, divorced, and left her broke. Posting it here to get this off my mind. I caught my wife cheating on me with a dude for whom she bought a car, and that too by swiping off the money from our joint account. Dealing with this wasn't as easy as it sounds. She tried her best to cover up, but the truth finds its way out. I, 38 male, am married for 6 years to my wife Meg, 34 female. We didn't have kids yet, but it was something we'd been planning for. Given the current situation, I think it's best we don't have one. Looking back, I don't remember when exactly I started noticing it. Maybe it was very slow and gradual. Initially, I suppressed my instincts due to lack of evidence. The starting point was when I noticed a transaction of $3,800 from a joint account. When I checked further, it was swiped at a car dealership. It was odd because she owned a new car, which I had bought for her a year back on her 10th anniversary. I immediately confronted her about this. She didn't even flinch and said, "Oh, that was for Amy." She took me to buy a car, and at the last moment, her card got declined due to some technical issue, so she was embarrassed. I told her I'd cover it and she'd pay me back later. It sounded plausible. Amy was her close friend, and a situation like this can happen to anyone, right? If she had told me about it up front, I would have never suspected her. However, the fact that she didn't tell me was bothering me. I asked why she didn't tell me about it. She said it wasn't a big deal, as Amy promised to return it as soon as her bank issue was resolved and she would put the money back into our account. I got suspicious and asked her, "Don't you think you should have told me about it?" $3,800 is a huge amount, right? She got defensive and said I was blowing it out of proportion. It wasn't a big deal. I wasn't even fussing over it. I was just asking why she didn't inform me, that's it. I let it pass, thinking maybe I was digging into it too much. There was another instance where she had swiped $1,100 at a fancy restaurant. Before that car thing, I wasn't so keen about checking the statements regularly, but after that, I ensured to check at least once a week. I asked her what this expense was. She said it's an unsaid rule in her office group that everyone has to give a birthday treat to others, and hence she had to take her group for a team dinner where she swiped the card. I was okay, but I asked, "Why didn't you tell me about it?" She rolled her eyes and said she missed talking about it. Her excuse fussed me out. Instead of taking accountability, she turned it around to me, saying that I was being too nosy and spying on her. I said, "You can think whatever you want, but I'm not going to let you get away with it." A month went by, and I casually asked her when Amy was going to return the money. She flustered and stammered. She's in a financial mess and requested me to give her some more time. She whispered underneath her breath, "Didn't know you were following the statement so closely." I was like, "Excuse me, what did you say?" And she said, "Nothing," and turned back. I wanted to dig further because it sounded so fishy to me. First, she told me Amy's card was declined, and she chipped in. Now she was saying Amy's financially struggling to return the money. Didn't fit well. The next day, she came home in tears. I panicked on seeing her that way. She said she got mugged. It's unbelievable because we live in a safe neighborhood, and she's always in her car. Apparently, her car got flat tires, and she had to take a tube. While walking out of the subway, 2 homeless guys mugged her in the deserted alley. I asked her why she took the subway when she could have just taken an Uber. Even if she did, she could have avoided the alley. It's not the only way to our house. She stopped and said it was a shortcut. I didn't press her further and suggested we report this. She showed me the ticket that she had already reported it to the cops on her way. I pacified her and asked her what was in the bag. A phone and wallet were expected, but what else? Surprisingly, she was able to somehow save her phone. It was just the wallet that the muggers ran away with. She showed me the message that $4,000 had been swiped from her card, which was in her wallet. She had already called the bank and blocked it, but it was too late. The muggers had emptied her card. It sounded weird that she had reported it to the cops and the bank even before reaching home. She was already crying, so I let my thoughts slide for the moment. After a few days, she sent $3,800 to the joint account. She said Amy had returned the money. Matter seemed settled, right? But no. She asked if she could be made the primary holder of the joint account. It was a red flag, and I didn't miss it at all. I asked why. She said she doesn't get any notifications, and since I was the primary holder for 10 years, it was only fair that we switch it to her. I didn't agree immediately. I pressed her for a reason why she suddenly wanted to be the primary account holder. She had no other reason except the one I mentioned above. I didn't agree or deny outright. The series of events was enough to activate my suspicions. Something definitely was shady. I started looking for opportunities to snoop into her phone. When I did, I got nothing. Surprisingly, the chats with Amy also had no mention of the money or any concerning topic. Last week, she went to her office party on Saturday. Out of boredom, I started cleaning the house. Though it's her chore duty, I started by cleaning her closet. It was a mess, with a pile of clothes tangled together. I pulled a heap down to arrange it, and out came a pair of papers from a car dealership. It was a document for a car purchased with a down payment of $3,800. The car was in Meg's name. It was so confusing and messed up. Without thinking twice, I texted Amy and asked her about the new car. She was surprised at my question and asked, "What car?" I told her the one that Meg had been feeding me lies about all this while. She went silent. I understood she was relaying the information to Meg, who frantically called me, accusing me of going behind her back and snooping on her. I said, "Come home, and we'll talk about who's going behind whose back." She was home within an hour, storming in to charge at me. I threw the car documents at her, and she froze. She tried to turn it around on me, saying I was spying on her, but I didn't let her overpower me. I questioned her bluntly. "Who is the person you're cheating on me with, and on whom are you showering my hard-earned money?" I randomly started taking names, and she got pissed off. It became a yelling match, to say the least. Then she sat down, defeated, and said, "It's not how it looks." I said, "It does look like you're cheating on me and spending our savings on someone else, but tell me what it is." I'm ready to listen. She admitted to using the money to pay the down payment for her colleague's car. Her first version of the lie: "He's just a friend. His card got declined and I chipped in. I lied because he's a guy and you might think there's something cooking between us, so I used Amy's name." I refused to buy this BS and said I knew she wasn't mugged, that it was staged to cover up. I won't lie. At this point, I was already calling her a cheater and other names, accusing her of sleeping with her colleague. Eventually, she broke down and confessed. Moments ago, she had been hiding it, and now she claimed it was a mistake. She said she'd been feeling neglected and that the affair partner was just a distraction to feel good about herself. Regarding the car, she admitted to using our joint account to buy him a car as a gift, but claimed the affair partner was going to pay her back in installments. I couldn't believe her audacity. She used our savings to buy a car for her lover, while I'm still paying the mortgage on the car I bought her just a year ago. At least I had been recording the entire conversation from the start. After spending years on Reddit, I knew how to document everything for my own sanity and legal safety. I know having evidence is always helpful. She apologized and said she would stop seeing the affair partner and would also get the money back. Gradually, everything seemed so casual to her, As if it was nothing, I had no energy left to indulge in any further fights. I went to the bedroom, picked up my stuff, and set up the spare room for myself. She didn't intervene and said she would give me the space I needed to get over it. I didn't move from there to get over it. No, no. I was there to plan my revenge. I'm not going to let it go. My first target was the car I bought for her. It's still in my name. I'm the one paying the mortgage, so legally I can do whatever I want. Second was the money from the joint account. Almost 80% of the savings in the joint account was put by me. I made 2 times what she does. I don't mind contributing more as it was for our future. I immediately hired a divorce attorney and got it started because that was the most time-consuming item on my list. It took me a week to get his appointment and discuss my plan. I also contacted my landlord to transfer the lease to Meg's name. As we were separating, once that was done, it was on her to pay the rent. Meanwhile, she tried to play the perfect wife act. She made breakfast and dinner, which remained untouched on the kitchen counter. She was annoyed by my coldness, but didn't dare to crib about it. She would just leave me notes here and there saying, "Sorry and I love you." She even tried to get intimate with me, trying all the means to lure me into bed. My pants aren't loose like hers. I have a hell of a lot of self-control. When I snapped at her move, she would throw fits at me. It was hard not to blow up, but I ignored her existence. I ate outside and slept in the other room. I isolated myself completely from her and didn't even access the living room once or the kitchen. She would often try to corner me, asking what I was up to, and I would just give a cold response that I don't know. Yet, I've also put up the car for sale and even in touch with a buyer right now. I'm just waiting for the divorce papers to arrive so that I can finally serve her and get done with this. This wait period is killing me, and I needed to let out my emotions. I haven't spoken to my family and friends yet because I don't want my plan to get leaked, so sharing it with strangers. Thanks for reading. If you I guess nothing says healthy marriage like discovering your wife financed a side-piece car while you're still paying off hers. Sharing is caring, right? And then fabricating a mugging story. Wow, bold move. Meg, if you haven't already, please consider documenting everything she's done up, including her confession about the car and affair. Stay strong. Update 1, I didn't anticipate this to blow up. Thanks for the support. It was overwhelming. Here's the update for the people who have been asking for it. After I posted here, a lot of you suggested I take care of my living arrangements meanwhile, and it was very helpful advice. I rented an apartment to move in as soon as I served her. I slowly started moving my stuff in there without her noticing it. My plan was ready. I waited patiently for the divorce papers, and the day I got it, I executed the plan. I called the towing service and got it towed from our garage directly to the dealership while she was asleep. They gave me a fair price, which I deposited into my personal account. When Meg realized the car was gone, she was furious. She stormed into the room asking me for an explanation. I said I sold it with a straight face. Her jaw dropped and she yelled, "You had no right to sell my car." I shot back, "I had every right. It's in my name, and I'm the one paying for it. If you want a car, maybe that mother refer can buy you one with his money." She went quiet and said, "How long was I going to hold this up, and I should move on?" Meanwhile, I pulled out the paper from the closet and handed it over to her. She took the paper and asked me in shock. I chuckled, saying, "I wish I could have returned you the wedding ring, but I have sold it to pay for the legal fees." Then she started crying and saying it was a mistake, and requesting me to work out through this. I picked up my packed suitcases and said, "You didn't just cheat on me. You betrayed me in every possible way. There's no coming back from that." She followed me into the house as I dragged my stuff outside to put it in the trunk. She was in panic mode, asking where I was going and why I had made my hasty decision. I said, "Oh, I forgot. Here's the lease document for the house. I've transferred it to your name, and now you're responsible for the rent." She freaked out. "How am I going to manage all these by myself? You know I don't make enough to rent this place." I said that maybe you can shift into the trunk of your lover's car. She held my hand and tried to stop me, promising she would do anything to save our marriage. I said you should have kept your legs closed. Maybe that would have helped. Now that ship is sailed, despite her pleadings. I moved out next. I emptied the money from the joint account, leaving just enough to cover the upcoming bills she didn't notice right away. But I know it was only a matter of time. The same day I saw a notification that she tried to withdraw $10,000 from the joint account, and it got declined because I left barely a few bucks in there. She withdrew everything which was left and blew my phone, accusing me of death. She said I robbed her money and that she would sue me for this. I said, "We'll take this to court." The divorce proceedings began, and she tried through all her means to stop the divorce. She pleaded in front of the magistrate that she was willing to work on the marriage and would do whatever it took to save it. She said she would even let go of the money. I took away the joint account. We were even asked to attend a couple counselors, since Meg was so adamant about not letting go. I attended as part of the order, but I made it clear that reconciliation was off the table in the session she confessed to following for Air Partner, because he made her feel good about herself. It also came out that she gifted him the car to keep him interested in her also. 1,100 swipe for dinner was a date on which she took her affair partner. It felt so gross and pathetic. I never thought she would stoop down to such a level. She also confessed that Fair Burner had been ignoring her ever since she told him about her divorce. He also made it clear that a long-term relationship wasn't his thing. Probably that was the reason she was holding on to the marriage so tightly. If a fair partner was interested in marrying her or something, she would have accepted our divorce easily. To be honest, it was heartbreaking to know I was the second option to my wife. Hence, I put down my foot and said, whatever it takes, I want a divorce. The proceeding is still on, so I cannot talk a lot about the terms, but once it's settled, I'll make an update too. Here's the final one. So the divorce process dragged on for months, during which her life began to fall apart. She struggled to make ends meet. She didn't make enough to afford the rent of the house, so she moved into a small condo. She asked a fair partner to give her back the money she put into buying the car, but he neither was in a position to return helplessly. She asked him to return the car so that she could sell it and recover some money. Guess what? He ran away with the car with no trace. She even lodged a theft complaint. She broke down in front of the attorney and magistrate while disclosing these details. He was using her miserable life to claim alimony from me. However, my lawyer fought fiercely to dismiss all her financial demands. She tried everything to win me back. Apologies, promises to change, and even offering an open marriage from my end when she would practice monogamy while I could sleep with others. I burst out in laughter. I said sorry, but I'm not like you. I stayed firm that nothing is going to make me stay in this marriage. Finally, it's settled now, and I cannot be happier. She was left with a little more than regret and the realization that she's destroyed her own life. Though I had hoped to move on quietly, I kept hearing about her from here and there in bits and pieces. Apparently, she took out a loan to cover some of her living expenses while she fought for alimony, and the creditors were now chasing her without any savings of stable income. She was borrowing money from friends and family, many of whom had grown tired of her excuses. Her fall from grace hit rock bottom when her landlord evicted her after she fell behind on rent. It was sad that she couldn't afford the bare minimum rent. However, that's not all. A few months after the divorce, I received an unexpected call from an unknown number. It was Meg. Her voice was shaky, almost unrecognizable. She wasn't calling to beg for forgiveness. This time, she was in full-blown panic mode. Apparently, after our divorce, she had to track down the affair partner to recover the car, or at least get her money back. A horrendous truth came out. Not only had he vanished with the car, but she discovered he was a fraud. A fair partner was involved in a small-time fraud ring and had used that car to ship illegal drugs from across the border. The cops had seized the vehicle and summoned her to the police station in whose jurisdiction the car was seized, because she officially was the owner of the car. Now she was being investigated by law enforcement for her alleged involvement. The money she had lost was nothing compared to the legal fees she was about to face to her benefit. She had registered a theft complaint since she had an affair with him, and she bought him that car. The cops are grilling her down to share his whereabouts when she called me. She wasn't just panicking. She was desperate. She was on the way to the police station and wanted me to accompany her. She had no one to fall back on and couldn't face this herself. I listened patiently as she rambled on about everything, and when she finally paused, I calmly asked, "Why are you calling me after everything you put me through? You really think I'm going to save you?" Her voice broke and she begged me, saying, "Please, I have no one else to turn to." I almost laughed at her entitled behavior. I said, "Yes, that's because you burned every bridge you had. You betrayed me, lied to me, and spent my money on your lover. Now you want my help. No, this is your mess. Deal with it before hanging up." I added, "Oh, and you know what? Karma's a wit, isn't it? Enjoy the ride." The last I heard of Meg was through mutual acquaintances. The investigation into her connection to Air Partner fraud ring had escalated while it seemed unlikely she'd face jail time. The stress and the legal cost completely drained her. As for me, I slept like a baby knowing that her life had been shattered entirely by her own doing. There was no need for me to lift a finger. Her lust and lies had ensured her downfall. I can honestly say I'm in a much better place. I focused on rebuilding my finances, taking care of my health, and even started dating again while cheating, and the whole divorce stuff was exhausting. It also was a harsh and necessary wake-up call. For me, I had spent years building a life around someone who turned out to be a cheater. It was time for me to prioritize myself and safeguard my interests. Now I'm free to construct a life that is truly my own. Her realization that she had no safety net, especially when a fair partner ghosted her perfectly, highlights the saying, "You reap what you sow," and then there's the refusal to help her, which was exactly the right move. Her mess is hers alone to clean up. Bravo, op. Here's the better days ahead. What would you have done? And thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video.